This is the time of year where shit challenges you, Tyler, and mentally,
Yeah.
you got to be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the time of year where your record, you're staring at 1-4, 0-5. You're staring at lineup decisions last minute. You're like, yo, am I going to make this move? Am I going to sub this player in and out? You're looking at trades, and we're looking at players. Bijan, we talked about it. Bijan, Brees Hall. You're looking at players who you drafted really early who have been disappointing, and you're like, holy shit, if I don't move these guys, I'm going to lose my fantasy league. It's a tough thing, man, because I think a lot of people underestimate fantasy, like the mentality aspect when it comes to fantasy football. People say fantasy football doesn't take skill and that it's all luck. And I completely disagree with that because there's certain things you can't categorize when it comes to fantasy roster construction, knowing when to get out of a player. Like, there's a lot mentally when it comes to like making the right decisions that people don't talk about enough.
No, I agree. One thing I'll say, there's two things that I want to say. The first one is, I think one of the most, and like all right, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but like I won my fantasy baseball league this year. I never played fantasy baseball. It's the first year, but it was
Congratulations.
with cutthroat people that have played since, I want to say, over a decade now. This league has been around, and I won it. I won my fantasy dynasty basketball league. And one of the most important things is, and I never played, and that was also against people who have been playing. And one of the most important things that I think makes a fantasy gamer is you have to be able to understand, not even understand, you just got to be able to like sift through the pieces of players that are available in the waiver wire is the most important thing. I don't care what anybody says about the draft. Like, you can have a decent draft. You don't even need to have a great draft. Like, if you do a decent draft, like the waiver wire and being able, not even the waiver wire, just free agency, and able to pick up guys and understand, all right, this guy's kind of trending in the right direction. You need to get ahead before they're the top waiver wire ad for the week. Like, you've got to be able to understand that and be able to see it. And then the other thing too is, and I used to do this a lot when I was younger, and I actually did it this weekend where I wanted to, I knew all week long, like DJ Moore was the play. DJ Moore, DJ Moore, DJ Moore. Like, he's seeing the targets. But Dontavian Wicks last week had that really good game, and he's playing against the Los Angeles Rams. And I was like, all right, literally I think the game got over, the 9 o'clock game, whatever it was. But 2 minutes before kickoff, I went in and I switched out DJ Moore for Dontavian Wicks. I ended up winning still, thankfully. But like, because I had Garrett Wilson, and that's kind of why I did a little bit. I was like, I'm just going to shoot my shot on Dontavian
Yeah.
Wicks, get that security with Garrett Wilson a little bit. But like, and I think those kind of decisions a lot of the times, like, just go with like your gut, number one, but also just trust your process. Like, and sometimes your
Yeah.
process doesn't
Great
work
point.
out. Like, and that's fine. Like, everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's batting 100, right? Like, it's not going to happen. So trust your process, trust your decision making, and just go with your gut. And just, yeah, there's this little toy over here that might be new and shiny and stuff, but like this guy over here, kind of Alvin Kamara this year for me, I was like, he's been around. Like, this guy's
Yeah.
been around
Yeah.
forever. But you just go with the old reliable. More times than not, it's going to work itself out. So yeah, that's how.
Well, and you touched on this a little bit when you were talking. You said the waiver wire is the biggest tool for you fantasy wise, and I am almost on board with that. I think it's the second most, and it depends on your league. This really depends on your league, but I think trading is the most undervalued and probably the best way to build your team. And there's a one-word description of how to know how to win a trade and how to pick up, and I think they're both correlated. Intuition. You
Yeah.
you have to have intuition, and not every fantasy player has that. And you made a really good point, man. I think that's probably one of the more single underrated things that's part of fantasy that it's tough to quantify. You can't talk about that on a show. I can't be like, yo, I have a really good feeling, because if that feeling doesn't pan out, now we're idiots,
Yeah.
right? But there's
Yeah.
there's a reason why I think there's a cream of the crop when it comes to people that give advice and that are confident even when they're wrong, because it's worked out enough for you. And having the intuition, watching enough football, playing enough fantasy, just fantasy in general, not just fantasy football, but fantasy in general. There's certain trends that you see with people when it comes to players, when it comes to trades, when it comes to waiver pickups, and how long somebody will stay on their roster. The more you play, the more you'll understand that. So experience, intuition, that's one and the same. And I feel like it's a really underrated value, man, because to know, like I talked about this with Juju Smith-Schuster. I was like, you know what? I saw this earlier, and it wasn't something that I actually acted on, but it was a thought that I had in my head that actually had some credence. It was the usage, and it's just things, little things like that that stack up and
Absolutely.
add on, and you're like, okay, I was right about this or I was wrong about this, but the process is right. So if you have good intuition, especially with trading, like, yeah, make moves. But if you don't, if you realize you're the butt of the trade most of the time, or you realize, shit, I dropped that player too early sometimes, maybe it's time to, you know what I'm saying? You gotta tap in with us a little bit more, man. Because that mentality aspect is big.
And there's two guys I want to say I have a little bit of intuition about right now. All right. There's two guys.
Oh, let's hear it.
One of them I don't think is gonna pan out, but one of them actually plays for San Francisco, and that's Isaac Arendo. Now, what I'm going to say about Isaac Arendo is, do I think he's going to overtake Jordan Mason? No. But Jordan Mason right now leads the league in touches, total touches. He's getting worked, a lot of work. And Isaac Arendo, he had that fumble, but like when I look at the usage and everything, the snaps, his snaps keep going up. The usage is going up with Isaac Arendo as well. And it's just an interesting thing. Maybe nothing comes around, but like this is one of those players that for me, I do this a lot in fantasy football, and that's why I think I'm pretty successful. Is like I see these kind of things, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to turn the end of my bench. One guy that's at the end of my bench, I'm going to pick up Isaac Arendo. Doesn't do anything, that's all right. But if he does, like you're ahead of the curve. The other guy I would actually try to be pursuing as well is Blake Corum. And why Blake Corum? Like this past week was very important because Blake Corum overtook Ronnie Rivers. He was now the guy. And the other thing that was really important too, Blake Corum saw some red zone work, which is really interesting. We know Kyron Williams right now. I want to say he's the second. He's actually second in the league in terms of total touches as well. So like we know he's 200 pounds. He's a lot of work. I'm not saying like all players get hurt, but like there's certain players like Devon Achane that are higher risk. I think that Kyron Williams is a little bit of higher risk, and like anything happens, we already know. We talked about this. Blake Corum will walk in. He's an automatic RB1, like automatic RB1 walking into this offense if he ends up seeing that role, which I think he would over Ronnie Rivers. So he's another guy that if he's available, I'm going out in like every single league and picking him up because he could have been dropped. Like
they're on a bye this week, though. They're on a bye this week, so you have like a little bit of time. Nobody's really
yeah. He might actually be dropped a lot this week, then.
Yes,
for
he will be
other
dropped
people.
A lot this week. And I think the thing is, the way I know that's a good pick is because you and I can confidently be on here. And sorry if this seems like gloating, it's not. This is just when you talk to somebody who's won a league, you know the type of players that can impact the lineup. And you and I differ on a lot of things. So differ philosophy-wise on a lot of things. Player-wise, we find value in different players. I know it's a good pickup, and I know because we're not talking about Blake Corum. We're talking about Blake Corum the exact same way, and you and I haven't talked about Blake Corum at all recently. And I know it's a good intuition play because both of us are like, oh, shit, his time is coming at some point.
Yeah.
You talked about the workload. You talked about the opportunity. I think it's coming. And now whether it's week 7, week 6, that remains to be seen. But don't be surprised if Blake Corum is a player that I've kind of been on like that. And I've kind of hated it because it's gone against, like you talked about Breece Hall. I've been on that about Braylon Allen. And I've kind of felt that way since early on. I think I dropped that name when we were doing some of our preseason stuff. And it was like he just had that look about him. There's certain players that just on the field, their production situation, you feel I just didn't see a path for it. And it's like, I still don't, but I still have that same intuition about Braylon Allen. You know, it's a weird feeling about certain players. I don't know how to describe it or quantify it, though.
No, absolutely. Like I felt the way about Tyrone Tracy. Like, and that's like I talked about him a lot. I mean, obviously Kamani Vidal, which still holding that hope. Come on, Kamani. But Tyrone Tracy made a lot more sense though, like just because he was the RB2 heading into the season, and he balled out this weekend, man. And I think that I think Devin Singletary will go and be the lead back, but I think this thing got a lot more interesting where if like Tyrone Tracy's out there, like I would another guy absolutely dying to pick up. I haven't dropped. Well, I may have dropped him in like 1 league or 2 leagues just because like injuries happen, shit happens. You got to drop some guys, unfortunately. But a lot of leagues I held on to them, and these are the moves. Like these are the moves, the championship moves, like that you need to be making. I truly believe that. Like trading, yes. Some leagues unfortunately don't trade. Like there's just not a whole lot of trades that happen. Like guys really stubborn, and you'll see that. But like the one thing that you can control is the waivers and navigating through free agency, that I just think there's so much value in free agency where truly it can help you in your leagues.
Wise words from a good man. And listen, man, this is, we talk about intuition all we want, but right now our intuition is bad on this Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson thing. So hopefully that turns the right direction. Our intuition is right. But we'll be back here very soon, guys. Make sure you guys tap in with us for future episodes. We will see y'all on the next one. Peace out.